This week in PlayStation, we're talking about our Forspoken review and Greg's weekend with the DualSense Edge. We'll have all this and more because this is PS I Love You XOXO. What's good and welcome to the show, everybody. That's Greg, that's Andy, I'm Janet, and you can get this show on patreon.com/KindaFunny. There you can watch us record it live, mostly except for embargo stuff. Get it ad-free and get dozens of monthly episodes of exclusive content. If you have no bucks to toss our way, support us on the Epic Games Store with games like Fortnite, Rocket League, or Fall Guys by using the creator code KindaFunny. You can get PS I Love You for free with ads and without the post show on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames and podcast services around the globe. Thank you to our Patreon producer, Delaney Twining. Today we're brought to you by the hit game show Kind of Feudy, but let's start off with topic of the show. But really quick, I also do want to highlight that I got this little guy.
Whoa!
This little Astro. Also, even though I don't necessarily regret I forgot what episode it was, Greg, but our ordering of like the games, like the hottest PlayStation games, I have been going back and slowly chipping away at that Astro Platinum, and man, that game just delights over and over again.
It's fantastic. So hold this guy up here now. This isn't an action figure. This is a diorama. Where'd you get this? You get this from PlayStation Gear?
So this, yes and no. This is, I think you can get through PlayStation Gear. My friend Joe got this for me as a holiday gift. So shout out to Joe. And it's like I'm going to mispronounce it, but like Nendroid? Those like bougie Funko Pops. Yes. And you have like these little pieces and it's like all modular. So you can like change his face to have different expressions and he can be like standing up without his little, I got him like hovering next to like a little coin over here and like, yeah. And then he's got a little cape. It's very nerdy, very cute.
Love it.
And yeah, it's nice to have some PlayStation stuff that isn't just like Jack and Daxter and the two Bugsnax plushies I have behind me.
Sure,
I mean, that's fair and fine, but it's like, I'd like to have a little bit more
diversified
merch stuff. Yeah, and Astro's just such a good mascot, but
he is.
What about y'all? Do you have any like little figurines of any PlayStation guys hanging out?
This is perfect timing, as you all know. I'm never on this show ever. I don't belong on this show. But I did get a couple figurines in, Janet, that are perfect for this because you just mentioned Nendoroid, which is made by Figma. I got, after about 2 years of waiting,
Bloodborne, the Hunter.
My Bloodborne Hunter Figma. I legitimately pre-ordered this like in 2020, and it was delayed and delayed and delayed after several years. It is made by Figma, who also makes the little Nendoroids. And it finally shipped after a couple years. And another one that I just got in, another Nendoroid, my boy
Cute.
9S from Nier Automata. He's a little cute boy.
Oh, the anime, nice.
Little cute boy, yeah, it's a good anime. Fighting game.
Now, I can't help but it's whatever you want to be. It's whatever you took away from the experience. I can't help but notice they're still in their packages. Are you opening these guys up?
Look over his shoulder. He's got everything behind him, still in packages in there.
Yeah. Up here, it's just lined with Endoroids. It's got a buttload of them up there. Buttload.
But you won't take them out of the box.
Well, I mean, one day I will. I have several in my closet that are already out of the box. Next to the cans of unopened chili, I have a lot of Nendoroids that are already out of the box. I have a solid snake one that you could replace the cute head with the sort of 8-bit polygonal MGS1 looking one.
Nice.
So there's a lot of stuff out of the box, but I do just really enjoy the packaging as well. Yeah.
Andy, you mentioned that you're not usually on PS I Love You XOXO. I want to thank you, of course, for coming in. We're both reviewing Forspoken today. I want to thank, of course, you, Janet, you, Andy, you, Barrett. If you're an audio or a viewer, I should say, if you're one of the video viewers, you'll notice we're doing the work from home setup because, of course, we're recording this on a Sunday to make sure we hit the Monday embargo. So thank you all for your dedication to the craft and coming in here.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's just go. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. The tearing the box open. If you're watching the video version. So many people talk to me about this. Like, I watched you tear open this box. My brother's like, did you see Greg just attack this thing like crazy? And I'm like, absolutely, I did. Yeah, DualSense Edge.
What's
Even
the
better
point
when
of
you
keeping the
rip it
DualSense
violently out of its
Edge box? I get it. I still in my dad's attic have my PlayStation 2 box. That's an amazing, gorgeous box.
The blue one, beautiful.
Who cares about a controller box? What are you talking? It comes with an amazing carrying case. Keep it in there.
I'd say the problem that I have with it though, Greg, is it's not easy to like break these down. They've always got all these weird shaped, hard kind of plastic moldy stuff, Janet. You know, like this isn't just like an Amazon box that you break down super easy and squish down and cut it.
No. That was not me taking a shot at you with your Ninjago boxes. I was talking about the controller boxes that make no sense. These are display cases. This I totally get. I still have mint on cards, Supermans up here on the shelf and stuff like that. I have a Nolan North signed Superboy Funko Pop over there. That's in a box. Like I am not by any stretch of the imagination saying every box get to the curb. The people's reaction to the DualSense Edge box, though, it's like, you know what I mean? I've never understood people on the internet being so goddamn sensitive. And this is the example, Andy. This is the example.
I just wanted to show the two extremes. Like one guy like really taking care of his boxes, and then the other just absolutely trashing them.
I do have my PS5.
Never gonna see that box again.
I still have my PS5 box up there.
Yeah, do you guys still have Greg, do you still have your PS5 box?
Nah, I'm done with that.
How did you throw it away immediately, or did you wait?
Well, no, I think if you remember, I think we did so much launch coverage. I kept it for like set dressing for work from home and things like that.
Remember the embargo that was just show people the box?
Yeah. If I don't know if it's still that way, but
that's why you have to keep it. You would have missed all that content.
Literally for a year, the photos that I think Lucy James, we were roommates, obviously. No, they were the ones I took, right? I took photos of my PS5 in the box, and it was used for fake eBay postings forever.
Oh, right.
That's right. Yeah, somebody was like, wild. Here, I'm selling a box. Here's my PS5, and I live in Sarasota.
That's great.
That's Greg's picture. That's bullshit.
I digress.
That's wild.
Janet, the show's yours.
Yeah, I tossed mine out for the record, finally. I'm trying to free myself of some of these hang-ups. A weird box I do have is the PlayStation faceplate box, but only because I have no place to put the faceplates, like the white ones.
That's fair.
Like, where am I going to put, like... I have no place. Even now, it's like just putting them back in there. It doesn't really work.
It's like
either,
keeping a pistachio shell. You know what I mean? I'm right there with you. I got it.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not at all. Anyway, let's move on to the topic of the show. Forspoken review. This is probably, I think, I want to say in some ways, no shade to the other games, one of the most like the first anticipated one where people were like, okay,
sure.
What's going to be the verdict on here? So I'm very excited to hear about your guys' playtime with it. Quick reminder for you, Forspoken comes out January 24th, 2023, developed by Luminous Productions, published by Square Enix. The demo's been out. People have been hot or cold or hot and cold on it. We finally got the answers. Greg, let's start with you. How much have you played? Top level thoughts, and give me your score.
I've played 15 hours of it, a little bit more probably at this point, a little bit more than 15 hours. I have rolled credits on it. And before you can really talk about Forspoken, I think you need to talk about, because you want me to give the score, which I appreciate, I love. Let's talk about the KindaFunny review scale. Some people don't like the KindaFunny review scale for the exact reason I love it. And that's the fact that you only have 5 options, right? It's either terrible, bad, okay, great, or amazing, right? 1 all the way up to 5. And people who want to be upset about it are like, well, it's not granular enough. And I'm like, no, that's the point. We are a company that talks for a living. I want you to listen. I don't care what I actually give the score. I want you to hear me and understand what I'm making my argument for. Plus, I think as reviewers, it puts us in really interesting spots all the time of like, is this game just okay or is it great, right? You know what I mean? Like, is it okay to great? Is it good to great? Are we going from there to there? What are we doing with it kind of thing? And I really feel there's been a lot of good 3s in there where I'm like, well, it can either be, okay, this game was great. This game is good. Or it can be, okay, this game's not good. Or it was good. That kind of thing, right? Forspoken. When you want to talk about story, combat, open world, mission design, the list goes on. None of them are good.
Damn.
So for me, on the KindaFunny review scale, there is no choice but to declare that this is a bad game and give it a 2 out of 5.
Andy. Do you agree?
I have significantly less time than Greg in this game. I'm so glad that Greg bit the bullet to play this game. I'm several game sessions into this game, and each time more than the last, I looked forward to my time with it. This game has some promising elements, but I just enjoy so little of what's happening in the game. I can't really give it a score. I haven't beaten it, and I don't plan on ever going back to it. Thank God. It's again some promising stuff. I don't. I think maybe traversal is about the only one.
Yeah.
And aside from that, there's just a lot of stuff that this game feels like it's out of time. This feels like a visual remaster for the way an open world game that came out about 10, 15 years ago. Like, this is how games felt back then.
Wow. Some harsh words. Well, let's dig into it. I guess in that first session, especially Andy, because you said you kind of just barely dipped in.
I had like 6 to 7 hours in.
Right. What were your first kind of impressions of it? Like, what are the first things that resonate with you, that stick out with you? What is that initial experience jumping into Forspoken like?
This game has such a terrible first impression, which gave me hope because I played the demo and I thought, this isn't terrible. This is not a bad experience. It's kind of promising. There's some stuff in here that I'm digging. Maybe it's just takes some time to get used to the combat, and then I'll start to really enjoy it. But yeah, this game, it does a lot of the stuff that's parody by now. The stuff that you see in meme to hell on TikTok when it comes to walking around a room and picking up a box and going, my little figurine box. My parents gave this to me. Loved it all my life. And you put it back down. Like, it just does that shit like right at the beginning, and it just feels really, really odd and bad. Dialogue is not great. Part of me wants to excuse it by saying like, maybe it's like a young adult show. You know, maybe this is something that you'd see on CW. But then every line of dialogue is fuck, shit, fucking shit. And it that kind of like makes me not use that excuse anymore. I think it, again, starts off with a terrible first impression. You play the role of a character named Frey, who is living in New York, doesn't have parents, is alone, and suddenly gets sucked into this magical world. And then, like, it gets less and less fun and more annoying as it keeps on going.
That is accurate. That is 100% accurate. I'm right there with you, Andy, of when it started and we got dropped in the world. I was like, oh, okay, this is like a teen movie. This is like an adolescent movie that you would watch. It's going to be this person who is a 20-something-year-old kid. Like you said, an orphan. She's out in the streets in New York, right? She's homeless. She's a street kid, kind of like an Aladdin kind of thing, right? And then dropped in this magical world. And I was like, when I first played through that, I had a little bit of the opposite where, of course, there is the walk around the apartment and pick the stuff up. But the way they were setting the plate and setting the narrative for the story, I was like, okay, well, I like young adult movies. I got nothing against it. And there should be obviously a whole bunch of different games appealing to different audiences. I could get down on this, out of time, out of place. I'm this modern woman who's dropped into this fairy tale world. That could be fun. But I'm with you, Andy, of like, I'm back with you, I should say. Once I'm in the world and I got going in this story, that was just all tossed by the wayside and not enjoyable and not interesting. And I really think it speaks to a conversation I had with our friend Timur Hussein from Giant Bomb, right? Who hit me up at one point and he's like, hey, are you playing Forspoken? I'm like, yeah. I'm real early though. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of an awkward game, huh? And I was like, it is awkward. That's a great way to put it, blah, blah, blah. Right around the time I rolled credits, maybe a day before, I texted Tam and I'm like, you know what is a better way to describe this game, to talk about this game? It's not entertaining. It has all of these different pieces that you see a giant dragon battle there. You see all these magical spells Frey has, right? You have 4 different magic trees by the end of the game that are different power sets that you switch between and do it. You have these parkour moves. You have this giant world to explore. There's this city that has, this class system of people in the lower levels not mattering, and then the rich elite up top, and this story of this girl who just wants to get back to New York. And it's like, all of that could easily be great and could be cool and could be interesting, but none of it in action is. Throughout this game, at no point was I sitting down and being like, I can't wait to play more Forspoken. It was very much like, oof, all right, gotta go play more of this.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger bummers about it is whenever we play these games for review, there might be a really, really great game that for whatever reason, maybe I don't necessarily want to get back to it. But then once you do, you get sucked in again and suddenly you're there 6 hours later in a long game session. And for this game, I just found myself less and less encouraged to go back. It reminds me a lot of playing Crisis Core Reunion earlier last month or whatever it was. Crisis Core Reunion being a visual remake for the PSP game Crisis Core. And this game really does feel like a remaster of an older game where there's just so many little old things about it that don't really fit in well with today's, like what you expect from an open world game today. With Crisis Core Reunion, sure, it has really nice looking 3D models and the environments look so much more better than they did back in the old game. But at its core, you still feel like, oh, this is a handheld portable game because I'm going from, interaction to little enemy encounter to an enemy encounter. It just feels like an old school game. I was just blown away so many times by the first 3 hours of this, Greg, where you're running around and you talk to somebody. When you walk up to them, it fades to black, fades out from black into the dialogue cutscene. You talk for a bit, fades to black. Now you're back as a character. You run 6 feet over there, fades to black. Yeah. Because like that happens so much, and it just really feels like maybe that's not what they wanted initially, but they just kind of had to rush those portions of it because that was the quickest solution for it.
Two things on that.
So many of those little moments just felt really old school. They felt like 2005 open world single player games.
The way I described what you're talking about, because that's happening in the hub world, right? The main city you inhabit and everybody inhabits, right? Everybody else, there's this horrible mist out there turning people to zombies or whatever. So you're trying to clear that, obviously, and bring peace to the land kind of thing. So there's one safe haven you all live in. I described that area. Everything you just said is correct. But I described all the interactions there as it is like a theme park and not in a good way. It is like being at the Hall of Presidents. These people are not
like
living
being at Haunted Trails.
Huh?
It's like being at Haunted Trails.
I don't know what that one is. I don't like theme parks that much. Yeah, sorry. But it's like
all these being people... at a theme park, but you got to like take a big shit, and you're just
Jesus,
like,
no, it's not that at all. It's not that at all. It's that these people aren't living, breathing NPCs. They are standing there waiting for you to talk to them, and they're standing there awkwardly, just waiting for whatever. If you want to interact with them, you do, and what that means is they just say their lines to you, and you walk away. And it's like this world doesn't feel good. This is not something that the whole thing doesn't feel right. Back to your point, right? It's like stilted in every way. I feel this game, and the other way I was talking, I think, to Barrett about, right, is like it feels like they took all the wrong lessons from the recent open world Assassin's Creed, where all the stuff like you necessarily didn't like or whatever, like that's what they kind of based this game on in terms of what you're doing in it and running around.
So tell me more about that. What is that gameplay loop like?
So the gameplay loop is that, again, there's this main city that you come back to, that you talk to, where everybody inhabits. Then it'll open up depending on where you're at the game, right, a new like walled section out there in the world that you have to go fight. And so basically it is the door opens out of the castle, you go out, and you have this giant new section of open world to go to. And at the far end of every one of these open worlds is going to be one of the big bosses you need to go fight, or what you're driving over to go do. And between point A and B, even I guess it is, there's just a map littered with fucking icons and treasure chests and these things to go pray at and things to go smash the growth off of and mutants to fight. And then there's these challenge rooms, and then there's a different kind of challenge room where you go on a thing. There's that guy over there that Barrett's showing right now that you run to, that you sync to show more icons on the map, and blah, blah, blah. And like, you know me, Janet, I love an open world game. I love an open world action game. So like an open world action game where you basically are a superhero, right? You run in this game using a parkour. Parkour is a big part of it. And when you run, you can basically run like the Flash, as you see right there as Frey takes off, which is awesome. Like that's a cool movement mechanic. I like that. You can go into these different, when you go to the map and you see all these different icons, you can hover over and it'll tell you what you'll get for doing it. And you can get more of the basically charges that you can eat through to run longer, run faster, use those abilities more or whatever. And so
It's funny you mentioned you don't like any of this. I think this is like the best part of the game. And
well, I think it would
great.
I think again on paper, like this is very easy. I think, and again, this is your mileage will vary kind of conversation. I think on paper, if I was listening to this podcast and somebody's pitching it to me, I'd be like, oh, that's really I love that kind of shit. I love collecting. I love open worldness. I love that. It fails because of combat, which I did not enjoy. I think most of the powers are incredibly lame and they aren't fun to do. And so, like I went into controller accessibility settings of like, all right, let's turn off the haptic feedback on the trigger because this sucks to fight the entire time to go do that. I digress. For this conversation, it's the fact that combat is not enjoyable. I do not enjoy combat in this game. And then it's secondly, the fact that I don't need to be rewarded. So what I was driving at is that for the first 7 hours, I played this game like I would play any other open world game, which is, all right, cool. I'm going to the far end of the map. You get out there and you'll see the far objective and it's miles and miles and miles away. And it'll say that and it's going to be a while to get there. And as I went, I would, pick off treasure chests. I would pick off enemy battles. I would clear this. I would do that, blah, blah. 7 hours in, I was like, okay, I'm not enjoying this game because I do not enjoy the combat. I do not enjoy the story. I mean, there's so much I want to jump off of. The train's going on one point right now, right? I wonder, I'm not feeling challenged by this game. I'm not playing this game being like, man, I really need to level up. I need to grind. I need to do that. And it's like, I wonder. And so what I started doing is just running to the objective. Like for the rest of that game, I ran to the objectives. All right, cool. We've opened up this new area for you. Thanks. Peace. Flash sprint across the map forever. And I mean, these take a while to do. And I use all my charges and I just walk around a couple bad guys and then flash sprint to the next thing and just keep the golden path going that way and beat the things. I was never under leveled. I never felt like I wasn't powerful enough. And I don't know if that's because I did so much in the first 7 hours, which I doubt. And yes, I could have turned the difficulty up. I could have made it harder. But again, I don't enjoy the combat as is, so why would I want to stick around longer for it? Like, the game is just not good, which is it sucks. Obviously, every game I want to play, everything I invest 15 hours in, I want to be great. But like this one does not hit, I think, even the threshold for a kind of funny. Okay, it is a bad game.
And there are plenty of just bad moments of combat, Janet, where I think the abilities you have kind of like two different trees to switch from, both located on each trigger button. And
if I can stop you right there, I want to, so there's 4 different spell classes. And then, you have basically an attack and then a spell as like, casting something. Sorry, Andy, back to you.
And like Greg nails it perfectly. The first thing you're going to want to do if you do end up trying this out is turning off the haptic triggers because you are so often clicking right stick to kind of spam abilities. And the whole time when that trigger is fighting against you, it just feels so bad to do. It feels like you're playing with a controller that is like, there's something wrong with it. So you're going to want to turn that off and just go for the normal kind of trigger feel. But once you're in there, I do feel like switching from abilities or going to one spell to the other to one, you might have one spell tree where one of the spells feels like shooting an SMG. It's really kind of fast.
That's what I used.
And then there's another one that feels like more like a shotgun type thing. Switching between them just doesn't feel fluid at all. There's no rhythm to any of it. When I think of moving from spells, even in a much older game like the old school Mass Effects with their weapon wheels.
Sure.
Or the newer type of weapon wheel stuff that happens in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like all that stuff always feels good when you get all of your kit kind of moving and grooving. That shit feels great. In this game, it just doesn't feel like there's any rhythm to it. It really does, like Greg just mentioned, it feels so not fun to do. And I don't blame Greg from going from objective to objective to get out of that rhythm, because at that point, who cares,
Talking about the combat here and just the fact that it's not enjoyable. Another thing that I always find this interesting because this is not news to Luminous Productions, right? What I'm about to say. This is a choice they made because they thought it fit their game. And for me, it's so off-putting. But it's the fact that nothing is immediate in this game. As you watch this go on and you watch this battle, it's frantic, it's crazy, it's colorful, you're doing these things. But it is one of those things that you have to let your animations play out. You can't like mid-cancel something. So if I'm shooting and I'm about to shoot that third shot and I hit the button, but the boss starts to attack, I can try to do the flash run, which acts as your dodge, which is actually a very nice dodge because you don't have to time it. You can just be running the whole time. I can try to do that, but I'm going to get hit because I have to complete the animation for shooting. You have these big area of effect spells, right? That you slam down, but as you go to cast it, like you can get hit from behind by the one zombie you didn't see that breaks the whole thing. And these might sound like nitpicks, but it's more the fact that this is what made me roll my eyes and go like, oh God, I don't want it. Okay, then I'm gonna have to play this differently. I'm gonna have to do this. There, to Andy's point of like, in the different spell trees, there are different spells and attacks to unlock and do it. I was very much of the argument, why would I do that? Like I went through and found, okay, cool. I like the SMG attack. I'll do that. Someone invest as you go through, you're collecting these like motes of light that are the way to upgrade your magic. I'm going through and I'm just investing in that way. And then of course then the second spell set you get is this fire magic and it's melee base. And that was actually, I thought this feels pretty good. I do like that. Both, I'm sure, a strategy pro, but an overall con, I feel, is the fact that when you run into enemies, they are going to do basically what you'd expect from a persona, where guess what? They're resistant to that type of magic, or they're vulnerable to this. So suddenly you have to be using all every one of the trees. But to me, that meant, okay, get the power, read through the powers, which one sounds the best. Okay, I pick that and I just invest in one attack and one spell, like defense spell or area of effect spell throughout all of these. So I can just have, when I run into the guy, because there's one fucking, goddamn it, guys. There is one spell tree that's water based. And literally one of the attacks is like just throwing water balloons. Like that's what it feels like. That's what it looks like. And I'm like, this is lame as fuck. Like I was like, what? I upgraded to something else to do it, but it's like I would never use that by choice. If I had a choice, and sometimes you do, where it doesn't seem like it matters what you use, but that's more end game stuff. I was just using the SMG, and it's like so not fun. Like again, the game, and I'm talking very end game stuff, very last chapters, but like the penultimate chapter of the story, like really does wear on way too long. Where it was, we were doing the Kinda Funny Day stream, and I was like, oh man, like I'm making good time on this. And I'm like, I remember distinctly being like, it's 3:30, 3:40. I'll wrap this up, this chapter I'm up right after 4, I'm sure, and I'll do Gregway then. And at 4:45, I remember distinctly being like, I gotta stop. I just gotta, like this, it's just, they keep throwing different like monster closets at me where, cool, you go in this room. Well, guess what? There are these lanterns that you need to take out, or they'll just keep spawning enemies. Well, now they've changed the lantern. Well, now the lantern is protected by the enemy. So if you kill the enemies, then you can fight the. It's like, oh my God, like just let me progress through this thing. Like, it was just when the story is getting interesting, they throw a roadblock in of like, okay, well now you got to keep doing this.
That does make me curious about, you talked a lot about enemies and how the spells kind of interact with them. What were the enemy encounters like, and like what's the enemy variety like? Did you feel free to explore the open world? Did it feel like you were always interrupted by enemy encounters? Could you avoid those easily? What was that flow like?
You can explore at your leisure. I think, the main enemy type you're going to find out there are the grunts, which are just zombies, which were the people of Athia that got turned into it by the break, which is what they call the fog out there, right? That infected them. They didn't get out in time. Now they were zombies wandering around there. There was also some wolves like that. It'll do that thing of, you're playing and going, and if you want to engage, you can. There's like giant hordes of them at time that, again, you can easily run through and run past, or you could go. It is very much I didn't feel the random enemy encounters, and not literally random like Pokemon or whatever, but like, right. I'm going from point A to point B, and I wouldn't run into something that I was like, oh, this is throwing off the entire thing. Maybe I'd want to engage, maybe I wouldn't, but the bigger stuff is marked of like, cool, go here. And if you eliminate all the enemies here, you'll unlock a cloak. Because there's also, on top of the spells, there is a gear system.
I'm sorry, you just sound so tired. Like, I get that you're like obviously trying to be thorough, but like the exasperation that comes through, I think really speaks to what you felt playing this game.
And I think the biggest problem with it personally is that this game could have been fucking awesome. I really do believe it. I love open world action games. I love superheroes. I love leveling and quests and RPGs. Like, to get into be like, oh, by the way, there's a gear system where there are cloaks and there are necklaces, right? I would have thought at a glance like, oh, that's going to be a big part of the game. It was not. I got my first cloak and invested a whole bunch of stuff into it. And then I found a cloak that looked better. And I was like, all right, put that on and invested in that. And then I did one necklace and I put the +5 whatever on there. And again, like, early on in the game, there's it's going to give you +5 purple magic, again for the different magics you go between. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then it didn't dawn on me. I unlocked red magic, and I was like, oh, like, well, I don't feel like changing this up. Again, the game isn't telling me to do it. I do not feel I don't feel the need to go out and make dude, I'm going to make a red build. I'm going to make a blue build. Like, maybe in later difficulties you would, but again, it's not the difficulty that wasn't fun. It just wasn't the moment-to-moment gameplay. And to toss in on top of that, they have nails. You can paint your nails. That will then give you different abilities and different buffs as well, too. And again, I was like, oh, that's a neat idea. And it was like, I painted them once, maybe twice, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to roll with Aftershock, and you know what I mean? And then this all spell damage plus 2%.
Yeah, you might get a better cooldown on one of the abilities, and much like Greg, I think I messed around with that maybe once or twice and kind of never really felt the need to go back to it.
There's a giant resource thing. There's crafting, but again, like, I didn't need to do this. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I kept unlocking new things. Oh, Janet, there's a photo mode. And if you go and you take photos for these kids and you turn the photos back in, then you unlock now you've unlocked the sepia filter for photo mode. I'm like, oh, guys, nobody wants to do this. This isn't rewarding gameplay.
The open world, Janet, much like Greg is mentioning, there's a lot of mobs everywhere. Every once in a while, you will encounter a field boss that is just kind of out there. It's a big old monster. It might look different depending on where it's at.
So kind of like Sonic.
Just like Sonic, yeah. Just like Sonic. And in this game, you are going fast. Eating chili dogs, that's right.
That'd be awesome.
You can go back to these field bosses because you'll likely be a bit under-leveled at first. You'll notice that the chip damage you're getting on them is really, really minimal. So you'll probably go off and level up and might come back and get better loot for it or whatever. We haven't even mentioned the look or the dialogue of this game, which is like a whole nother bag of worms.
100%.
Janet,
do you want to tell them about the bag of worms on patreon.com/kindafunny?
Yeah, sure. Go. This is a good time for us to go ahead and take our toss to our sponsors. Remember, you can support and get the show ad-free at patreon.com/kindafunnygames, but you're not there. So here's a word from our sponsors.
Yo, what's up? I'm Blessing, the host of Kinda Feudy, the show where I ask members of Kinda Funny to answer questions like, name a game where you can fight giant enemies. Name a type of animal you can play as in Diddy Kong Racing. Name a PlayStation character who you'd want on your pickup basketball team. Name a game genre that Greg Miller refuses to play. Good Games is not on there, but it was written in quite a bit. And see how many audience members voted for that answer, and it usually makes them kind of mad. Red Faction is our 30-point answer.
Whoa, yeah, baby.
That is our 4th most popular answer.
Whoa. I'm still waiting for Bless to be like, just kidding.
Once again,
You guys are so bad at this game.
catch up on the latest episodes right now, exclusively on patreon.com/kindafunny.
All right, Andy, tell me about this bag of worms.
Gosh.
Also,
they're
like, there's so
slimy.
much like I'm just sitting here and I'm soaking it all in. Like, there's so much baggage here. Obviously, I also wanted this game to be good, and I had a feeling that it wouldn't be for a number of reasons. I think we all kind of felt that, but to really have it all come out now, like. I'm sad that we had to do that. That this is where it came to, but I am interested to hear like the nuances of what was going on, and again, so much potential, but didn't quite land. So yeah, dig into whatever you got. Dialogue, visuals, what stood out?
Yeah, so much potential. I do want to point out that like I think there's this notion that ever since we saw those initial trailers and we saw kind of the cringy dialogue here and there, that we've been waiting to shit on this game forever. Anytime we've been showed this game and they show off pure gameplay, the movement, the spells, the particle effects, I'm just like, dude, this game's going to be a sleeper hit. I can't wait to kind of get into this because you could tell that like visually it's doing something really cool and special. Stuff that you can't really do on old gen hardware. The newer gen hardware is going to really take advantage of this. And again, these particle effects whenever you're throwing these spells out look gorgeous. One of the bigger problems with it, I think, is that I think that the game is like not super optimized. So a lot of the times it's using, in my opinion, it feels like it's using the like a variable resolution change. Whenever maybe there's too much going on screen, it drops the resolution fairly low, and a lot of times this game looks like ugly.
Yes.
And I don't know why or how it's possible for it to look ugly, because there are times when the game does look stunning, and it's such a weird change where suddenly you're looking at it's like, dude, this looks really terrible right now. And I'm not sure what it is about these bad sort of procedurally done facial animations where this kind of shit that Mass Effect Andromeda got for back in the day, where in the main cutscenes you're having hand animated facial captures sort of stuff going on, like everything looks really, really nice. But then in the open world, when you talk to normal people, regular NPCs, it's just mouths flapping, kind of moving according to what sounds are being made. There are a lot of moments in here where you're like, oh my gosh, this just looks really bad in some spots. And also I feel like it felt, Greg, like there was just like a film, like a fuzzy film over the game in a lot of different moments, and it's really hard to explain until you see it in action.
Exactly. I think, yeah, sometimes when you'd be watching a cutscene or whatever, not one of the main cutscenes, but a smaller one or whatever, it would seem like Frey's face was losing textures. It was losing detail at time. Like it is not, it has the, I think, you were watching the cinematic trailers here, right, of the cut throughs and all the good stuff. It's like, I wish the game looked like that entirely. I think the game, if you want to even get away from just like specific gripes, like they do such, those first 7 hours were so fucking brown, so colorless. It's like, I'm not enjoying the gameplay and I'm not enjoying existing in the world. And it's also weird of like, if you talk about the accessibility of the menus and stuff, I went in there and turned on highlight enemies and allies close to me, because I'd be in fights and the zombies would be the same color as the grass. And so I'd be getting cheap hitted because I can't, it's like, this is just like not good. And it does its best of, different world. Like I think its second world is the one that actually is green and has like greens and blues in it. But at that point I was like so over it of just like, oh man, I don't want to do this. But you brought up dialogue, and I want to call out, the fact of like, first off, as a plus, Barrett's showing this again, and this is the second time. The parkour, again, what a missed opportunity. It is fun to run. It is fun to, you saw like basically Spider-Man web tethering there. You have an ability you unlock there early, I think, and it might have been in that too, but I missed it. You can like skate on water and stuff. Like there are cool ideas for the parkour. The parkour in the traversal, I'm not going to talk too much shit about, other than being, a wasted potential and sometimes feeling out of control, but whatever. Aside from that, what I wanted to do is talk about like when people were popping up being like, man, this dialogue is so cringe. I didn't like the trailer, blah, blah. I listened to it. I was like, I didn't think it was that bad. Like, whatever. And I also hate when people describe things as cringe, but that's just probably the old man in me. And like playing this game, I was like, shut the fuck up. Both you, Frey, and Cuff, shut the fuck up. Like we talk about like, Aloy and Atreus not knowing when to shut up in their respective original games, right? Like, oh my God. Like Cuff and Frey talk to each other the entire time. Again, like Frey has, this cuff on her arm that got put on when she got shot from New York to Athia. It's sentient. It talks to her. Only she can hear it. So she can, she can look like a crazy person talking to nobody. They talk all the time. They repeat dialogue all the time. It is, and again, it is, I don't know. It's the writing. It's the direction of the performer. I would never blame the actor in this, but it's like, what I keep telling people when I talk about this game is like, you all can correct me if I'm wrong. When I curse, I like to think it sounds normal and natural, and that's my vocabulary. When Frey curses, it is such a shoehorned in fuck or shit or whatever she's trying to say. And beyond even that, getting through it, the repeating of the dialogue, I am so sick of hearing, because I don't even know what they're referencing. Like, that spell's meant to be done from a distance. Tell me something I don't know. And I'm paraphrasing what the actual, it's like, I heard that so many times playing this game. It was like, oh my God, shut up.
Yeah. You can turn that down. There is a setting where you can turn down the cuff chatter. I think there's like 4 different settings where it's like often.
It's a very
and
settings heavy game.
Janet, it's crazy, and I'm not throwing shade. It's crazy when you get the, hey everybody, here's your review code. Here are the bullet points. Here are some things we think you might do in the settings. You should do in the settings. I'm like, it's rare you see a recommended setting that's not the default for the game, but they were there, and there was a bunch of them in there.
Yeah, one of the recommended settings for us was auto loot, like not having to pick up the loot, just run by
it. I did.
Which I love, great. That's awesome. One less thing to worry about. Yeah, I do think that whenever you see Marvel movies getting memed to hell about like
Yeah.
it's behind me, isn't it? You know, there was that stretch where everybody's making fun of Marvel movie dialogue. This is that times 1,000. There was such a funny moment where I'm going from cutscene to cutscene, just kind of annoyed near the beginning of the game. And then the open world is sort of like, here you go, Andy, go explore Athia. And I walk 10 steps and there's a guy to my left that goes, excuse me, miss, a second of, I need a second from you. And out loud I went, no, shut the fuck up. And like, it was just such a visceral, real reaction from me that like, I was just like, I don't want to deal with an open world fucking fetch quest right now. That's not what I need right now.
When you guys were streaming on Friday, I shit you fucking not. It is the penultimate chapter. I am about to beat this game. And something happens and Frey walks out and it popped up with a fucking tutorial on how to follow like the light, like there's like follow the trail. I'm like, like, are you kidding me? You think I made it this far into your game and I'm not going to understand that I'm supposed to follow the light?
You never know, Greg. You never know.
You never know.
So is traverse, what if anything, does this game do well? Is traversal just the highlight? Like what?
That's it for me.
But also, is that really is it just the lesser bad thing, or is it genuinely good? Like, pretend everything else was good in the game. Would you say like, oh, traversal's also good, or would the traversal then be the worst part of a good game?
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
I don't think it just stands out because it's the best of a lot of bad things. I think it's legitimately fun and good. And that's why I see the potential. That's why I see the lost potential in this game. Like when I play a game like God of War Ragnarok and I want to keep fighting regardless of whether I'm done with the game or not. That's the mark of like a good fun combat system. When I play a game like Spider-Man and you're done with the story, you still want to swing around. That's good traversal. That just like those are good signs for your video game. And when I'm playing this and I am running around and I'm, there's nice little flair and sure you might see the same kind of little spin kick every other
when you run
second.
to a door you want to open and you run into it like
yeah.
Okay.
I think it looks fun. It's stylish. It feels good to do. I'm not frequently getting stuck by geometry that I would have expected the traversal be a lot more frustrating based on everything else in the game, how everything else kind of makes you feel. If this sort of mode of traversal was in any other game, I feel like it would just fit in perfectly with like, hey, I'm playing this game with dope, stylish combat and awesome movement. Like it really stands out and shines. And I think that is... I don't think it's because everything else is so not great. I think it is because the traversal is fun and good.
Yeah, I agree. I think traversing is fun. I think it is interesting. I really do like the Spider-Man tether. I thought that was a good addition when you get that because before then there is fall damage in the game, which of course there's an old one. I mean, whatever you want to say about Randy Pitchford and Gearbox. I remember one point somebody asked him during a panel, is there fall damage in this game? And he just looked at them and he goes, is fall damage fun? And the person was like, no. And he's like, no, there's not fall damage in this game. And so it's this weird thing where there's fall damage in this game. But again, all it does is eat into your mana, your ability to run faster and do whatever. So it's like, you'd fall and then lose 2 bars, but then they'd come back right away. I was like, why is this even here? Like, you've given me these amazing powers. Why not just let me run and have fun with it? But again, I'm nitpicking.
Because then you feel the joy of when they created the context for you to feel relieved when it's gone.
For real, the only joy I really felt this game was when I rolled credits and it came back to the open world. Now you can explore. I'm like, I'm good. Thanks. Bye, guys.
Was this a immediate... I mean, you might have it still there for content purposes or something, but was this an immediate delete, like an end delete?
I have it there for content right now because I always like to have stuff up while we review it, and I assure you, as soon as this is done, I will delete Forspoken.
Man.
And it's one of those games that you're just, it's going to be funny because, who was it? I think it was Paul Tassi last week put out an article at Forbes that was like, the 3 reasons why I'm worried about Forspoken. And then later in the day, he quote tweeted some guy who was like, Mr. Forspoken wet flag waving. I'm like, fuck you, you journo. You don't know what you're talking about. Blah, 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 blah. And I went through this guy's Twitter and it was all like So there's plenty of people who drank the Kool-Aid and want this game to be good. Outside of them, no one's going to talk about or remember Forspoken.
I really wanted the game to be good, and I thought it would still be like a 6 or 7 out of 10, and unfortunately, it just disappoints on so many other levels. I wanted to mention real quick the just going back to the bad moments of dialogue and the bad moments of sort of open world discovery type stuff. Walking in your apartment in the beginning, there's a moment, Janet, that I feel like if you don't roll your eyes at it, like you are not human, you know? And again, I'm kind of like Greg, where I hate how cringe has kind of been, it's taken over like everybody's vocabulary, but there's no other way to put it. When you walk up to a wall and you see a shelf of shoes and she's like, my trusty kicks. I've never left you. Like I love these kicks.
Reaction.
Andy, would you love to know, Andy, that later on they double dip on that, so you get to talk about your fucking kicks on the wall one goddamn more time?
I mean, when you
please tell me the trusty kicks are the thing that saves the day at the end of the game.
I refuse.
I mean, when you need to fit into this world of Athia, you need to look the part because people are looking after you, and they're like, "Cool, you got the cloak on." You got everything else looking good. Well, your shoes don't fit in this world, though. And she goes, "Hey, my kicks have never left my sides." I forget what it is.
Said that?
Yes,
no
like,
oh yeah,
like, and I'm paraphrasing, but it is
legitimately. That's not a line for line, but it is a plot point of like, you need to do something about your shoes. She's like, nah, man, these shoes define me or whatever.
Oh,
My kicks have been
these
with
shoes
me
are made
since
for
fucking...
traversing.
No, but it's not shoes, it's kicks. Yeah, you got to keep in mind it is kicks. It is a fucking 65-year-old man writing dialogue saying
it's
kicks.
like, have you seen that? I forgot what, I think it was a model who like has that like, again, cringe probably is overused, but that like cringy sneaker, like it's like from like a YouTube video where she's like, oh yeah, I mean these Air Forces, yeah, they got to be fresh. Like people listen. If you know, you know. If you don't, look it up because it was an iconic moment in internet history.
If a guy walks on a date with me wearing these kicks,
the
I know
dirty
exactly what you're.
I mean, they can be dirty, but they got to be fresh. Yeah, kicks.
Can someone please Photoshop boxes of kicks onto the main character's feet at some point? Thank you very much.
It is, and this is what and it's little things like this. I don't want to like hyper focus on this too much, but it's little things like this that really make me feel like this game was made out of time. Like this game was made in 2006 or 2008, and it went into development hell for fucking 20 years or so or whatever, and like it's finally here now, and that's why all of these things do feel like they are of a different time of video games. Again, it's little things like that it's this and a bunch of other shit that's gonna make you go, oh, okay, I kind of see what he's saying.
Like that's the thing where I started is like, again, I don't think anything ever gets to okay with me, with the exception of Traversal. Take that out, right? Like everything across the board is bad, and it's just like, okay, like it's not bad. And like when I used to review at IGN, where I meant like, oh, the game's broken, I'm falling through the world, something like that, right? It's just in the kind of funny way we talk about games. Like this is a bad game that I would never recommend to anyone. And I can usually when I play a game that even if I don't enjoy it, I'm able to be like, well, I can understand why somebody else would enjoy it. Or if you enjoy this kind of combat, you enjoy blah blah. Like the traversal here is not enough for me to be like, oh yeah, you need to go play this. And
I do want to point out, I know there will be a lot of people saying, why isn't it a 1 out of 5 then, Greg? I think if it was just broken beyond belief, along with everything else that we just mentioned, then that's like a 1 out of 5. But the fact that like it's still functional and it's still like serviceable, you know.
And I know this is the fun part of the review scale, right? Where a terrible game would be like, oh my god, that whereas Forspoken, I'm like, I'm total. If I wasn't committed to the review, I would have done an Andy, right, and played for a bit and been like, oh no. Which to the one of the best things is that's why Blessings is out of this episode. Aside from being Sunday and him wanting a life, he also played the demo. Was like, yo, this game kind of sucks. And then he got his review copy. And he played like 15 minutes. He's like, nah, I'm good. I'm not gonna do this.
That's why life hack. I'm not playing the demo because I will still be playing it on Friday for stream purposes. But okay, I take it then that not getting the platinum then, Greg, is that.
No,
Is that correct?
No, I'm not going to.
Have you looked at it? Is it like really hard?
That's
Like,
another one you can tell that I just don't care about the game. No, I mean, like,
Wow,
I
wouldn't even
glanced at
look.
it at one point, but I wasn't even maybe it's not the usual thing where I fucking fool myself where I'm like, maybe I'll come back. No, I was like, whatever's happening is happening.
Okay, so you're gonna hate Deleted after this is done. Andy, you're done with this game.
I'm so glad that Greg, thank you for doing this. Thank you.
Imagine if I loved
there are
it.
always those moments. You play like what I always say when it's maybe a middling game or a bad game. I'm like, hey, I play some of these games so that y'all don't have to. Now, if you want to still, hey, I mean, it's your life, but
yeah,
it's here. The content's there. Definitely hit us up on social. Let us know in the comments if you guys have more questions on Forspoken. But are there any last parting words before we move on to PlayStation picks? Hear a little bit about the DualSense before we close things out. Anything you need to get out there to leave us with on Forspoken?
I know this is a PlayStation podcast, but I will try it out on. I want to try it out on PC just to see if it does all the visual weird shit. Like I want to see if it just kind of.
Thank you for your service.
Looks sharper. Yeah, I'll report back.
For me, it's just reiterating what we said is I really do feel like it's a heartbreaker. My hope with this one had been that, oh man, you've pushed it to mid-January, end of January. You're kind of hitting around that point we always talk about with Dying Light 2, right? Like a game that doesn't need to be a 9 can come out and be a 7.5. Everybody can play and be like, you know what? I had a lot of fun about that. I was just shocked how much we talked about Dying Light 2 at the end of the year.
I'm still thinking
right?
of Dying Light 2. Like,
you know what I mean? But it's like you think about why we talked about Dying Light 2 so much. It was that the moment-to-moment gameplay is fun. Those systems worked really well together. The story was cheeseball, but it had that one moment where Blessing recorded himself freaking out. We're all like that. And then you talk about how well the boss fight sucked at the end and this thing. It's like there's just no outside of traversal's fun. Like I enjoyed there's no silver lining. There's no breakout moment where I'm going to be like, oh, when I think of Forspoken, I'm going to think of X. I'm going to think of to what Andy's saying, man, this feels like a game out of time so many different ways. The barren cutscenes, the way they present their story, getting into it and playing it and just being like, okay, whatever. More power to you if you're excited and you're going to play it and you want to get into it and it clicks with you. I hope, again, I hope anybody who spends money on a video game, I hope they enjoy their time with it, but it would never be a game I would recommend to anybody.
All right, well, there you have it, our Forspoken review, and that brings us right into PlayStation picks, which for the drop this week, we have, of course, Forspoken. Comes out on the 24th. If you're either still getting it or you already got the pre-order, and I don't think you can run those digitally. I don't know what the situation is. I'm going to be there with y'all just for, why not?
Are you streaming it on Friday? Are you streaming it?
That's the 2023 watch. Let's see it. Let's find out. And I'll also be playing the same day Dead Space, which comes out on the 27th. So those are the big games coming out this week.
You're going to play this over Dead Space?
I'm playing both. So I'm going to do 2 hours of Forspoken. I'll cut it short if I really need to. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I have had a few games, not many, but one time I was playing a game that everyone thought, and it was kind of bad. It wasn't Biomutant actually. It was Oddworld Soulstorm, and everyone was so not into it that they're like, you don't have to keep doing this. And I'm like, it's really. I mean, I didn't like it. I didn't think it was a good game, but I'm like, it's fine. Like let's just finish this hour. And people were like, you don't gotta do that. I'm like, y'all are. So the drama of chat is very funny to me, but we'll feel it out.
If anything, I hope that me and Greg being so down on it lowers your expectations so low that it ends up being fine for you. They're like, oh, you know what? This isn't that bad. That happens to me a lot with movies and games. Yeah. That's usually kind of what affects me with I expected a shit show. This actually isn't terrible. I hope you're affected in that way by it. I hope that you find some sort of silver lining.
Yeah, which... Man, what a bummer. What a dark way to go into this. But
it is.
You got games to play this week. That's the point. And speaking of playing games, Greg, you've been playing games with the DualSense Edge.
I have.
Tell me about it. Real quick before you get into it, actually, even though I just said tell me about it. Let's run through the quick bullet points on this one. Is $199.99 USD. Comes out on the 26th. You can see Greg tear this thing open across different social media platforms. DualSense Edge, it's a wireless controller, of course. It is USB braided cable. It comes with 2 standard caps attached to the controller, 2 high dome caps, 2 low dome caps, 2 half dome back buttons, 2 lever back buttons, so many things. Connector housing, carrying case, and of course an instruction manual in case you're like me and don't know what the cap is. But Greg, how's it been?
Well, hold on. I'm using it right now, my DualSense Edge, to delete Forspoken. Get that off.
Oh, wow.
Are you using the
over there.
back pedals for that, or like?
You know, I could have.
here?
I could have, and that's the thing. You know, I talked about it on the unboxing last week on PS I Love You XOXO, and of course, in general, when I talked about the Elite before, right, which has just never been. Xbox was nice enough to send Elite controllers. I immediately gave mine away. I think to Tim or Snowmike Mike, and maybe even Andy. I forget. I was just like, I'm not that guy. And so getting it here on the PlayStation side of obviously my console of choice and where I spend most of my time, I was like, all right, let's give it, the college try and go through it. And while I'm and I'm no expert then obviously in what you need to take away from that, but from playing Forspoken with it and Redacted, another game I'm doing for review that you'll hear about soon, it was one of those like, okay, I get it. Like I get it. Like for Forspoken in particular, right? Like I took the flash run and put it on my right back paddle, and then I put the Spider-Man tether on my left back paddle, so that I could traverse the entire time and also fight, I guess, and never take my thumbs off the sticks, right? So I could be doing all sorts of combat and be traversing and moving it rather than having to worry about moving one way or the other with it. And in the other game, I've been doing something similar that I'll talk about, I'm sure, at a later date. And I was like, you know what? Like, it is the downside. I was always worried about using an Elite controller or whatever, and down to the DualSense Edge of just like, of course, I've played games very specifically for quite some number of years. So I've done a few things where I hit the button, I hit the paddle wrong, and I reload the gun when I didn't mean to. I'm like, God damn it, you know what I mean? That's not what I meant. That kind of stuff. Or I dash when I didn't mean to because I'm just resting the controller in my hands. Or since it's not like it's the run button. I forget now for what it was for Spoken, but I think it's one of them would be circle, right? So it's like I skip a cutscene or I skip a line of dialogue. I'm like, God damn it, fuck, I didn't mean to do that. But overall, like, I'm like, okay, I can see, like, I'm probably not the use case for it in terms of, again, like, I'm not playing pro games that way, but I don't think I would spend $200 to, be able to tether better in Forspoken. But I am using the paddles and I am enjoying it, and I do plan to do it. If I was going to talk about, like, something else for it, I was very, not shocked, I guess, but impressed how easy it is to make a profile, switch between profiles, like that. As somebody who's never investigated, I was like, oh, that's gonna be buried in the menu. I'll have to go do that thing, right? In reality, all you have to do is you hold down the function guys, which are the tabs underneath the thumbsticks, right? And then it just pops up a new pop-up menu there that you can, if you've already made a profile, switch with the face buttons between the default, for me, Forspoken, then Redacted. But you can also hit the options button to open up customized profile, make a new profile on the fly, change a profile already. The game that's Redacted I was playing, and it was like, I initially did it this way, but hour and a half in, you get a new ability, and I was like, oh, you know what? That would actually be better. Went and did it on the fly, switched stuff there. Obviously back to default real easily. Janet,
is there a limit to how many profiles you can have? And these are, just to clarify, profiles like that you can create kind of per game, right? You can name it like Forspoken or like FPS or whatever you want.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Just kind of swap between those.
So what it is on terms of what you can have set to go, you can have 4. So you have the default, you have Forspoken, Redacted game, and then for me, not assigned. It's the face buttons you would set to it. But I do.
Do you think I guess you might have plans to like give it to someone else in the office who might get more use out of it. But let's pretend that wasn't an option. Would this be your main controller? Like, would you want to get used to, dealing with those growing pains of kind of relearning default placements? Or do you feel like it's more trouble than it's worth for you and how you game?
I think I'm going to stick with it. Tim had asked me if I wasn't going to stick around if he could have it or whatever. He's not afraid. He's like, I'll buy it too. I don't care. I'm like, let me feel it out and see. Like, I'd like to do a few more with it, especially for as much as we talk about PlayStation here, as much as I play PlayStation, and see how it works with other games. Because it has been nice, in Forspoken to be like, all right, cool, aiming, shooting, dashing, and not having to move up and over on it. And so I can see where, as you continue to go, like with other games, get a dash on there, get a parry on there, have it be a little bit easier where I can still be attacking. I'm interested to see if that would be something I'd be down for, or if it would get in the way of it. But in terms of relearning, that was always my concern, and it's been pretty easy. Like it hasn't been like, pat your head, rub your stomach kind of thing. It's more like, okay, I think in Forspoken those first few hours, I made a few mistakes and skipped some dialogue I didn't mean to by touching it. But even in the next game I'm reviewing now, I'm not having that issue with it in terms of screwing around with it that way. So that's been impressive. And I've also been, the other thing I was using was the different kinds of depth, I don't know what they officially call it, on the triggers there on the back for Forspoken, for the amount of feathering of R2 I was doing. I had it set to where it was like, the smallest one. So it was just like, tick, 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 and I can just get in there really quick and be done with
Trigger
it.
stops right there.
Trigger
Greg.
stops. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Andy.
Mhm,
That's why
no
you're the
problem.
pro gamer. You're the
Very
nitro
fancy.
rifle. That's why we all
Yeah.
understand and respect you.
Yeah, Andy, are you trying to get in on this controller as the pro gamer of the panel?
No, only because I already have something similar. I bought a Scuff controller like last year for my PlayStation. So that one, I'm at the point where I've been using back paddles for so long that I can't not have a back paddle. I think they are so essential for whenever I'm not even necessarily FPS games because I play those on keyboard mouse, but on
Sure.
any Souls game, I need my run or my dodge on one of the back paddles. Like I need to have my right thumbstick always on the camera to be swiveling around my character. So I stand by back paddle. So I'm a back paddle buddy, and I'm glad that I have a new back paddle buddy named Greg Miller.
That's adorable. And then, Andy, are you playing anything on PlayStation right now? I don't remember if you mentioned this already.
I am playing Redacted.
Nice. The classic, a favorite of the show.
Man, it's hard to believe they've made another Redacted this year.
I know, man. They
Got
keep every
remade
year,
again.
game of the year every year is Redacted.
Uh-huh.
Redacted, episode 34, season 5.
All right, for me, I got Cult of the Lamb. I finally picked that up on PlayStation. And then I previewed Chia. I didn't play that on PlayStation. I played it on PC.
Wait. I forget your background. So you've played Cult of the Lamb somewhere else, and then you were going to start
Yes.
it on PlayStation? Are you still enjoying it?
Yeah.
Do you still love it?
Yeah, I love it. I love it more
Great.
than which I guess I'll dig into Cult of the Lamb. We'll save Chia for maybe when it comes out.
Oh, no, I want to hear about Chia, too. You're not off the hook.
Okay.
I just want to know
Okay,
about how
okay.
Cult of the Lamb's going, and then I do
Cult of
want
the
to hear
Lamb's
about
awesome. I love it. I love it even more than it's funny because when you don't, well, I don't know how everyone else is, but for me, when I don't beat a game and I have it on something like my top 10 of the year, I wouldn't say I feel necessarily guilty because it's not that deep, but I'm like, ideally, I would have liked to beat all those games on there just to have a really full, complete impression and understanding of what does well, what doesn't do well, all that stuff. So having Cult of the Lamb on there and not having beaten it was like, oh man, I wish I had gotten around to it. But like, I started on PC. I got hooked on the liking to stream it because I like the Twitch integration. But then I never played it again because then I was like, when am I going to stream it? And I kind of went back and forth on that forever. And I finally said, you know what? It was on sale, I don't know, $2 off or so. It was it was a good sale, but the game itself was only usually $20 or something. So I was like, oh, 20% is not much, right? But I'm like, let me finally buy it. Screw it, whatever. I'll get it on PlayStation, even though I know I can't get the platinum because I'm not pro gamer, Andy, right? I don't got that skill. So I'm like, whatever. I started playing it and I love it even more than I loved it before. The more I dig into it, the more exciting it is. I tweeted this out the other day, but I literally stayed up until 2 a.m. the other day, and I was actually tired, but when I started playing, I was like, I guess I'll play some games, why not? And I just had so much fun digging into Greg, I know the sim elements didn't hit quite as hard. For me, I'm living for it. I'm naming everybody, Greg, you're in the cult, you're still alive.
Whoa,
Bless
I
is
enjoyed
there.
that. It wasn't, for me, it was always it's not an Animal Crossing thing. There's just food.
it didn't,
There's
it didn't have, and it's true, it doesn't have as much of that je ne sais quoi about it. I wish they handled decorations a little differently.
Sure.
I don't know if I can ever can I get rid of these ugly patches of grass, stuff like that. There are things to be desired from it, even with what they did. But I'm every day I wake up, it's a new day in the Cult of Game Odyssey, and we're here, and I'm blessing people. They just dropped a really cool quality of life update that allowed you to do mass either blessings or not murder, but I mean that's probably coming too. But that or there is one that's negative. It's shame, because you can choose different. For those who haven't played, you have these different kind of upgrades you can get for things that happen in your cult, things you can do, rituals you can run, or features you can pick feast or famine, where it's or feast or not famine, but what is it? Fast. It's my followers don't get hungry for 3 days, or I can just throw them a big party. And I'm I'm trying to be a nice cult leader. We got the party going. I ain't gonna lie. I'm draining this cult with ties though. I'm getting hella money out this cult. This is my cash cow. Every day I'm walking up to people. I'm like, yo, 2 coins. I'm trying to buy another toilet, for the back of the back of the area.
We need a good outhouse.
Exactly. Yeah. And they'll fill up quick too. So I'm I gotta get the cleaning station now. And I'm really liking it. I'm loving the flow of how just all the systems work together, the going out. I do find myself doing extra combat things just for the cult incentives of
sure.
Oh, Greg asked me for some flowers from Darkwood. I'm gonna go Darkwood for a bit. I got a thing where I can dip out whenever I want. I lose like 15% of my stuff, but like things like that. So I'm loving it. I'm just sad that people die of old age. I don't know if at one point I can like create immortal beings. I know there's necklaces and stuff you can add to them, but like Isaiah's in my cult. He died of old age. I don't know why I got him when I got everybody else. Why he aged so fast.
Yeah,
it's the ones you love. The ones you love the most. That was the fastest.
That was one of my bigger gripes with it. It's like I know you're supposed to be a cult leader and people are supposed to either die or you are supposed to sacrifice people. I just wish there was a tiny bit more permanence, like 30 to 40% more permanence on the people. Like if they eventually die, great, but I'd rather them last like just a bit longer so I can feel like I'm not just recycling through people. Like I don't want to. I don't want to Greg Miller number 3. You know.
Yeah, that's why I stopped naming people. Right, where it's just like I felt like I was burning so fast. I was sick of naming.
Yeah, like I have slowly been like building out. I'll hit up like a couple of friends. I start with like family people in my house. Like my dad's still in my cult. He's there. He's hanging out. It's fun making like think. Oh, what animal or what creature is this person? What color is this person? Like me and Isaiah were like, okay, who's Barrett? Oh, Barrett's this guy. Let's give him like a little face tattoo or whatever. I got him in the cult. I have Sarah Prozorski in my cult from Min-Max, and she's like, yo, I think Barrett's talking mad shit about the cult. And then I'm like, talk to Barrett. I talk to Barrett.
True.
Barrett's like, bro, I fucking love this cult. And I'm like, I mean, he said he loves the cult, and Sarah's like, this motherfucker lying. And I'm like, I don't know, but how's it going to play out? I'm not sure. I'm excited to find out.
Make them fight in the fighting pit. Do the fighting pit thing.
Yeah, so I'm having a blast and a half. Playing through this again on PlayStation. So yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a lot across like end of year content, this show, other show, but like I still really enjoy this game. It's getting an update soonish, like a bigger content update. So it is a really nice time to either jump back into it if you fell off or start it if you've been waiting. Again, definitely leaves a bit to be desired in like, it's no Binding of Isaac with its combat, but it's an enjoyable time. I like the flow of it. I'll definitely update y'all once I beat it because I am planning on beating it at some point. But I'm also going so slowly because I'm like maxing the hell out of everything. And also, I'm not gonna lie to you, part of me does wonder, could I do the platinum? Like, could I be that person just for a small enough time? Like, I don't know. I can roll
you summon
away, right?
something? Back
like, could
paddles.
I dig deep within myself? Could I get the back paddles and roll my way to victory? I don't know. I like
become
to dream,
a back paddle buddy, Janet.
Be a back paddle buddy.
I do want to be. It is so nice to be a back paddle buddy. And then my other thing was Chia is a game coming to PlayStation. Chia, yeah, coming to PlayStation and PC. It was shown at one of like the PlayStation Theta Plays ? Something like that. And it definitely like at first glance, people were like, this is indie Breath of the Wild, right? So you got a glider, you're sailing, you're walking around the island. And it definitely has a bit of that DNA in its climbing and its stamina. And even how like she holds the pots above her head or the bomb above her head. And if you're watching the video version, she throws this lantern and then shoots it. Like it has some of those elements to it. And really my big thing going into this preview, which I did preview it on PC, it's going to drop on PC via the Epic Game Store, was, man, this looks really cool, but what's it gonna feel like? Because I feel like with a game like this, again, from a small team, seems really ambitious. I'm like, I just worry that it's gonna feel a little awkward. And I'm happy to say that it actually feels quite good. I think it leaves a little to be desired in some of the smoothness of just like the jumps. I think its weakest point is like it has a combat element where you're kind of, I should say too, the big mechanical shtick that kind of sets it apart is this, I might be missaying it. It's like Soul Leap or Soul Bind. I forget exactly what it is, but you can basically go into objects and go into different animals. So you can like hit a button and then everything kind of goes gray slow-mo, and then you can zoom in and jump into like a shark or jump into a rock or a piece of meat or a cow or whatever. And each of those things, specifically the animals, have different like little abilities they can do, and they're like cutesy things like some of the animals can like a chicken can lay an egg, or a bird can poo on things as it flies over. And I'm guessing some of those will be like little quests and things that get tied in, or like one of my quests was like to get an egg, so it's like, okay, well, you take it over the chicken, you can lay the egg, then as the girl I can pick up the egg. And just genuinely the flow of jumping between objects and animals, being able to be like a deer or something and race up a hill, and it very much like kind of what we talked about earlier with Forspoken's open world. Like, this is an open world game, and it does have a lot of those like, you know, the Far Cry effect, right? Like lots of things on the map. But I like doing all this stuff on the map, and I find it to be really fun and cute and compelling. And they like, my big takeaway from my time with it was being impressed by also how much detail and thought and care is put into it. Not to imply that everyone isn't doing that, right? I think everyone cares about the games they're making, obviously. But I really like feel it as a player playing this few hours of Chia, where it's stuff like being able to turn the note on like the ukulele as you play it, or having
they totally have the Last of Us guitar playing shit going on.
Yeah, they do.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's like they have that like little stuff in there, or like they have this really cute moment where you have a cutscene, and like in the cutscene your character is cooking, so they like have you as a player like roll the little food and put it in the oil. Mechanically, that's not like blowing my mind. Like it's not like it's the best cooking simulator moment in games ever, but I'm just like, oh, they think of these like cute little touches that they kind of add in, like to get your photos, like you have to take the film and get it developed somewhere. Like they just have like these really cute little details that I was really surprised by and appreciated and enjoyed. So just off that preview, like I'm looking forward to picking this up on PlayStation. I feel like it may not like blow your mind, but I think it's going to be a good time. Like I'm going into this thinking, I think I'm going to get a good video game out of this. Or if not that, a really, really, really enjoyable, like, okay tier, right? Again, talking about what bucket do you put it into? Like, I went into this feeling relieved about my concerns I had about this game and more excited for that full release, which is set for this year. They don't have a release date yet. Hopefully it hits this year.
Indies.
But yeah, that's my
Janet,
time
my
at
question
Chia.
for you is, I forget, did you play Alba, A Wildlife Adventure?
No, but it did remind me of Alba, because I know everything about, like, I've heard you talk about it, and like I know people that have played it, but it does remind me of that in like the vibes.
Yeah, it's I mean, obviously Alba was just, you know, running around as a little girl on an island taking photos and finding animals or whatever. But like it's got that same colorful, cartoony look to it that harkens to that. And I was wondering if there was anything to it, but obviously they're very different games. Yeah,
like that one's definitely more of you know, kind of it's a photography game, right? Like kind of collectible photography adventure, almost like a 3D Toem, right? Like I think we see a lot of games that kind of pull on that. This isn't quite like that, but it has, I feel like tonally, it does remind me a lot of those elements. And I feel like what's cute about Chia 2 is just how many fun things from other games that you see in Chia, but it's still kind of put together in a way that feels fresh. Like they have stuff like, you know, think of the Zelda connection. Like you can play a song and like change the time of day, or like grow like a spring plant that you can jump on, and then you can do these crazy like backflips in the air if you want. Like there's just so many cool little details in it. So yeah, I mean, hopefully, you know, y'all play it and like it as well. And that the full build is good. Still a little rough around the edges with a couple performance things, but again, this is like a preview build. So I feel pretty good going into the full release of this one. But yeah, that's Chia.
Awesome. Can't wait.
All right, y'all. Well, again, thanks for being here on what is a Sunday for us, and a Monday or later or whatever day you listen to this. For all you listening, remember, P.S. I love you. XOXO is only here because of patreon.com/kindafunny. So go over there, rock with us, support us there if you can. Otherwise, until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.